Okay. Laura, thank you so much for being here from Cambridge in the UK. It's a Saturday evening, so I appreciate it. It's my pleasure to introduce Laura Grimwood, CEO of a biotech incubator with social impact, and she works with Associated Fund. She's also an ambassador for Global Biofund, and she's going to tell us about her journey. I met Laura when she was in the Bay Area, and she's now working very hard on collaboratories in the UK, which was founded in partnership with Lab Launch in the USA. And there they're looking to foster innovation and partnerships in local ecosystems, facilitate the growth of startups by providing quality but affordable wet lab spaces. And she has a history of working in early stage biotechnology when she was here in California with an entrepreneurial perspective. And she studied natural sciences, focused at I think development and neuroscience. Is that correct? Yes, at University of Cambridge, in the same college that I was here. So Laura, thank you so much for telling us about what you've been busy with lately.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. It was lovely to meet you and listen to all the other talks as well. So I will share my PowerPoint screen. So I'm going to talk about AI and biomedicine seen from the USA and UK, software, biotechnology, and things like that, and biomedicine. So I haven't worked for an AI biotech company, but I've worked with AI and I've worked with biotech. So hopefully this is a different perspective from what we've heard already. Yeah. I'll go through my journey very quickly, just because Homer's already given me an amazing intro. So I actually joined the global biotech revolution during my undergrad, which was founded by Ip Sheeter, among others, who also started the Global Biofund that I work for now. I graduated from the neuroscience part of the natural sciences tripos at Cambridge. I then worked in neurodevelopment for a bit. I joined every society about biotech and entrepreneurship. I also co-founded a company called Konoku that actually uses neural computing, but using neurons. So I'll talk a bit more about that later. I left the US after I've been in that company for a while, tried academia again, and joined the Baby Lab, which also uses AI and machine learning to do data analysis. I then started working with 3 different other startups. Some use machine learning using on their data outputs, and some use it for other purposes. I'm also an ambassador for the Global Biofund now, which specifically supports women in biotech. And we're actually looking at a few AI company investments at the moment. Then I founded Co-Laboratories, which is enabled to help startups in the UK specifically, and I'll explain why that's really important. So I also have joined a machine learning startup that I work with to help them to scale up, but their work is really important because it focuses on accuracy in data and accuracy in output. Even though it's completely a software company, they actually have started working with medicine. And as our last talk mentioned, it's really important to have accurate inputs for that. So hopefully still interesting. And I'm also working with the Science Entrepreneur Club to host their latest program. And both this cohort and the last cohort, 3 out of the 6 companies are all using AI. So very, very topical in the UK. So how does the UK make biotech work? I like saying it's very different than the UK, having experienced both. What we were taught during Indie Bio and still stands today is move fast and break things. So this is whether it's with machine learning, biomedicine, biotech, big data, anything like that. So the US attitude to biotech in the UK, I sort of see in this way. Obviously, it's my opinion. Basically, they come at it from you don't have to be a biologist, which in some ways is really good and useful. And they really do apply machine learning very well. And they're very good. As you know, Silicon Valley had the big boom of generative AI and things like that. You also have loads of programs that help this, such as Y Combinator, which wasn't traditionally for biotech and biomedicine, but has been moving that way. They were really focused on like AI and software. So you have lots of big companies out there. They do things very fast, very cheaply. They produce a lot of data. So all of these things add up to a really good ecosystem. So how does the UK stand in this? So we have really good knowledge centers. We have some really good homegrown biotechs, biopharmas, such as AstraZeneca. We have loads of young accelerator programs, but we do have a severe lack of funding. We've also just left the EU, but luckily rejoined Horizon Europe, which is good. We have groups like MedCity who are trying to bring together these bigger biotech groups to share data, things like that. And we also have the NHS, which is an amazing resource for all of this data. We are one of the oldest healthcare systems in the world. We keep a lot of that data, and it's also kept very securely. So lots of opportunities for big analysis. So we're so close. However, this is from a recent McKinsey report, and honestly, it's quite embarrassing, but it highlights the issues that I've seen going across the pond. The UK is one of the best in the world at producing publications, particularly from small amounts of money. So we are one of the best at producing publications from the least amount of money in the world. So this is also comparing, the big powerhouses of this, so the US and China. However, our patents per our publications is the lowest in the world. That's kind of embarrassing. We are so bad at taking our data, taking our scientific knowledge and turning it into profitable, useful companies. And you might think that doesn't matter, but actually we do need to turn that science into something
I'm really focused about. I'm really, keen to fix this problem. So, why is quality of data impactful? So this is a slight tangent going to that software company I'm working with at the moment. It's a UK-based company that was actually one of the few doing AI and machine learning all the way from the 1980s when it was founded. So it was started by Dr. Tony Robinson, who is working at the University of Cambridge at the time. And he was using neural networks, so a biology concept to speech recognition. All right, it says my headphones keep switching, so do tell me if you can't hear me. So speech recognition is incredibly important in all of what we do, which sounds silly, but actually, as we heard in the last talk, with medicine, lots of other notes are also dictated. So learning from the medical speech and the medical language and transcribing and then using that to look through analysis and diagnoses is crucial. But you can't do that without accurate speech recognition. So the goal of Speechmatics as a company is to understand every voice. So no matter whether you're a different ethnicity, you have an accent, you're a man, a woman, things like that, because it has been shown that women's voices are transcribed less well traditionally. We have slightly higher voices. I don't know if you've tried to use Siri from across the room in your science experiments, it can be very frustrating. So even just in our day-to-day lives, as a scientist, I'm sure we've been doing speech recognition for a while. I used to take my lab notes using it. So it is incredibly important, even with this early stage data, to get it accurate. And so here's an example that we're using translation. If your transcript is inaccurate, your translation will be inaccurate. So this is just an example of Speechmatics versus Google's translation. Siri, I find even worse. When you try and say something to it and it doesn't hear you, it's not then going to convert it to something useful. So in this case, as we heard earlier, bad data in, bad data out. So this is super important, especially when we get to looking at big scale medicine. Imagine if doctors could give all their diagnoses verbally, they don't have to also rewrite all their notes. And then we can take that data straight from them. And it doesn't matter if there are spelling mistakes in it, because they've done it verbally. We can then get a whole picture of the patient, a whole picture of their medical history, and compare it to everyone else's and give that doctor an output. That's so powerful, but it only works with accurate data. So even coming from software, you have to start with an accurate place. So then this is the first startup I helped co-found.
So it is a biomedical slash like biotech version. So the brain, just in general, does a significant amount of learning. As you know, it's really hard to accurately model the brain in AI, but obviously we're trying to do that. So the brain does all the forms of AI. It does like what we now call machine learning. It does summation, generation, it models, it estimates, it all kinds of things. Computers struggle to work the way that the brain does because it's so complicated. Neural nets are a very big simplification. But smell, which is where we were starting, is one of the most computationally accessible functions of the brain, because you have the different smell receptors, which I've shown at the start. They go to a different summation group, the glomeruli, and then the brain goes, okay, so that's a 5-carbon something with an acid group. So it's probably, citric acid or something. And that's actually quite easy for us to model. So that's what the goal of CONICU was, to start with this data and get a label basically from each of the odorants that comes in and work out what they are. And then once you have all of this data from a person that you've collected over time or from an environment, you can see what's changing. You can see if they're producing biofactors. That means maybe they're producing disease-related molecules and things like that. So that's the goal of CONICU now, which was very exciting. Originally, we had just designed this to look at how the brain reacts to different drugs. But then we realized that smell can also be used in this to both receive and model the brain. So I thought it was quite exciting. Then a precision fermentation example. Almost everyone here will probably have heard of Ginkgo. They use machine learning to look at all of the data from all their massive data sets. They work with loads of people, loads of molecules across all different genuses, all different species, fungus, bacteria, like all the different big fermentation markers. And they have now been trying to apply AI to those data sets, which sounds really simple, but unless you collect data in the correct way, is very difficult. So it could be that all of their experiments differ. So then how can they compare all the data they have? So then I want to give the counterexample, which is a company we actually host at Co-Laboratories, who I'm really excited about. They're a bioengineering company that started from the AI. They started from the machine learning design standpoint. So they said, okay, in order to look at big data sets on certain organisms, we need this kind of data. We need to collect how quickly it's growing. We need to do in a controlled way. We need to do at least 500 at a time or whatever their number is. And so they're doing this to both do for small medicine molecules and also petrochemical replacements. They can then apply this to pretty much anything. So that's their goal. They can analyze so many strains, and then the strains are already ready. Whereas Ginkgo's way is going from the strains and measuring them and then trying to translate the data back again. So it's just a different way of looking at it, realizing that the clarity of data is so important. So, and then my last examples are from the Science Entrepreneur Club. So Eden Bio and Evolutor are quite similar. They're doing machine learning on outputs of different strains, and Alt Atlas is actually doing the same thing, but for cultured meat, which is really exciting. So they are helping cultured meat companies analyze the outputs of all of their different meat products, meat cell lines, and making sure they're not cancerous, firstly, and that they are edible, they're safe, and that they grow quickly. Because at the end of the day, all of the processes we rely on need to be quick, they need to be cost effective, and they need to be safe. So that's something that AI can really help us with, but hasn't been applied previously. So that was my very whistle-stop tour of biotech, certainly in London, using AI, and how it's very different from the UK. So hopefully I've left enough time for questions.
Thank you, Lara. That was excellent. And honestly, you that spent time in here and there could give us this kind of comparison. Nishant, I think we have questions I posted in the chat.
Yes, yeah, one of the first questions we saw come in, it's asking why is the patent rate in the UK so low in comparison with the examples you
Mm.
gave for the United States and China?
Yeah, so it's partly because of money. So money for spin outs, but it's also the ability to transition. So whether it's a university helping you spin out, or it's like different IP like fights within companies. So if you have an academic founder that just wants to stay in academia, why would they go and do a patent unless they have an incentive to do so? So that's certainly a struggle I've seen. Like in the US, they actively incentivize you to do this. They're way better at working with you. Whereas I mean, Oxford University has had a lot of bad press recently for not helping companies spin out and trying to keep way too much of the royalties that come off their patents. So we can be way better in the UK at this, at enabling companies to spin out, or even just, enable patents and then sell them off and allow other companies to use them.
Great. I think those were all the questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Laura, for spending some of your evening with us.
No problem.